Look at this. I got headphones on. I got a mic going. Baby.
If
Huh?
only people could see you now.
Hey, no video. We've gone through this before.
All right,
No
all right,
video.
all right. Welcome to This Commerce Life. This is a podcast aimed at small, medium entrepreneurs focused on commerce. I'm Phil, your host, and Kenny, your co-host, will join us as well. And we're going to talk to you about the world of retail and commerce and how things are changing in the world.
Guys, sorry about that.
Hey, that's okay. No
That's
worries.
the last time you're going to be invited to the show.
So-
That's it.
I
You're
had
never
this,
getting called back. You
had the,
plant-based people are all the same.
I literally, I had my afternoon blocked, and I had this session blocked, and then I get this like, hey, we've got to get together with the senior leadership team about XYZ.
It's fine.
They plugged the 3:30. They plugged it right at the time. I'm like, nah, I absolutely can't make it, but I could do 2 to 3.
Right.
So they're like, perfect. We literally started at 2, and then continued past 3.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's part of it, right?
It's like
all
it's
good.
the end of the year when you're
All good.
landing the plane and trying to take off at the exact same time, right?
Yeah. Oh man.
It's all part of the game, baby. All
It
part of the
is.
game. All part of the
I will
game.
warn you guys, my internet's been it's not been terrible, but it's been kind of going down a little
Okay.
bit. So
Okay.
it'll come back. If it freezes, it's for about 4 seconds, and then it brings me back in. And then my kids
all
are
good.
I don't really know what's causing it.
Yeah.
Good. Mine just dropped, so it didn't matter. right?
Yeah.
I changed
It's the
networks
internet.
to try to see if that would work. But
That's what I've been doing too, and it seems
Yeah.
to be not
Yeah,
changing.
I don't know. I don't know. All good in the hood. All good in the hood.
Welcome to the
like
show.
Thank you. Are we live now recording? I see
We
the
are.
little-
Yeah, we are recording. Yeah. We're kind of an unscripted show, so
Yeah, we're not
record.
live though.
We'll
But we
put
don't
out
change
some of
much
the-
of anything. This is it.
There's no live. There's
No.
no-
You can record it 3 months ago. It's still going to be the same show. We don't change anything. We don't rehearse anything.
Yeah.
So we just tell people. Everybody goes, "Oh, I've never been on a podcast," and it doesn't really matter. Ours is, you just talk.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
come on,
It'll go where it goes.
have a good
right?
time, have
Yeah.
some fun. Yeah.
I got. Is this all on camera too? I got moving boxes down
No.
here.
Oh no,
No.
don't worry. Don't worry.
Guitars. All
No, Phil and I've always figured we have a face
Yeah.
for radio, so we don't
Yeah.
really like to.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
the
We
audio.
like to see each other when we're
Try
talking,
not to
but
scare
the audience
people
does
away.
not need to see us.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's so funny.
Hard enough to get people to listen to us on a good day. Start showing our faces, man. It's
Nope.
it's over.
And then everyone runs away. Like
it'll
it's
be
just
shut down.
It's a sad thing, man. Kenny, do you want to do intros?
I can do a quick intro. I
Yeah.
mean, so we got Chris Bailey on the show today. Chris is gonna have to do all his recent stuff because I know Chris from the old days when I was at London and he was at Unilever.
That's right.
Okay.
And I don't even know how far back that goes. That's going back.
That's 2008-ish.
No, so yeah,
Okay.
probably 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something
Maybe
like
even
that.
maybe even 2006. I think I started there in 2006. So yeah, about
Yeah.
2007 I would have been on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been a long time. So he was at Unilever, then he flopped around and bounced around to a few different things. Vega was the last sort of cool one.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
from Vega, now he's at Daiya Foods.
Daiya Foods. Did you see
Daiya
the new
Foods.
media campaign?
Daiya
No.
Foods.
Daiya
Oh,
Foods is
either.
it's one of the
Daiya.
first plant-based companies of any size and prominence sort of period, right? They were one of the
Yeah.
first to really get going. How long have they been in business now?
Oh, we are. Oh, geez, these questions. I'm the newbie there. I didn't do my. But I'm gonna
20
call
years?
it
I want to
12
say like
12 years.
12. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been
I
a
remember-
while.
Yeah, because my funny thing is a small world here, but my wife was literally applying for a job there just before we moved to Toronto. So she was just getting
That's funny.
employed there, and they were
Yeah.
very, very small at that point. And then we came back, and one thing leads to the other, and then I ended up joining them in March.
You're going to tell us that story in half a shake because that's who Chris is. So Chris is now at Daiya Foods, and he will tell us more about what he's done, what he's doing, and what he thinks. That
Yes.
part will come slowly through the show. But the first two
Okay.
are pretty easy for him to go with right away. So tell us what you're doing, who you are, what you've done,
Yeah.
why you're on the show, why we know you.
Sure. So I can start just with a quick background, if you will. I know we kind of got started there. The believe it or not, I started my career in chemistry. So that was my early desire, was to be an environmental chemist, and I did all my schooling and ended up working in that environment of lab work and field work, but I just really didn't find it that inspiring. And I ended up getting out on a sales call with a couple of the sales reps for the environmental companies that I was with, and I absolutely thought it was the coolest thing on the planet. So I'm like, these guys have it made, right? I just love the energy, the art of the deal and all that stuff. So I literally made a decision. I came home and saw my girlfriend, who is now my wife, and said, I'm going to quit work. I'm going back to school. I'm going to take my business diploma, and then I'll get my bachelor's degree at night school. But this is the new plan. And that's literally what I did. I resigned. I gave my 3 months notice, went back to BCIT and did my diploma. Graduated from BCIT with my diploma, and believe this or not, I don't think I've told you this story before, Ken, but I started with Robbie's Footwear, which was a small little baby shoe company. And of course, my background, I played heavy metal guitar and jazz guitar for most of my life. And then all of a sudden I'm selling these baby shoes. But it was my first foray into a small little company that was just loaded with passion and a really strong product that I've never seen moms get so enthralled with product in my life. Like the amount of information we received from either blogs or emails or whatnot, just about how folks love the product. Yeah. It just sparked something in me at that time. It was a great 4 or 5 year period. Yeah. And then of course they got sold. And this was an interesting piece for me because the Unilever path, as you guys would know, it's a lot of the time it's folks coming right out of university. They kind of go and poach the top performers out of those universities, and you kind of get into Unilever or Procter and you just stay there. Right. I ended up having a referral to a good friend of mine, Alan Bates. And the guy
Alan
gave me
Bates.
Love
Alan Bates.
And we're still very good friends. Yeah. And I had a great interview with him, and something clicked. He gave me a chance, right, to come and join Unilever and start my career there. So I really liked that experience. It's where I really got a lot of business acumen and category strategy, and like here's how you do it from one of the best companies in the world. So I loved it there. And at a certain point, though, I was in the Vancouver market, and I knew where I wanted to get to with my career. And probably back then it was more ego driven in terms of I want to be the director or team lead, right?
That is the ladder they put you in, right? Like that's when you get into that, those
that's what it's
companies,
supposed to
like
be,
that,
though. That's
so.
what
that's what they. It's very much like that. And what was interesting on that one was I was
except for Alan Bates, actually, because Alan Bates is like he's an immovable rock. He's just like they've been trying to get him out of the Vancouver office for like 100 years, and he just.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing how many folks at senior leadership levels he's
how many people has he mentored? Honestly.
Oh my gosh.
And I'll tell you the thing is because Alan's a really nice guy, first off. So he's very nice to talk to. And for younger people coming up, he'd be one of those guys to tell you the ropes. This is the bullshit you have to deal with. This is how you get around stuff. Because he was he was one of those guys that could just stick.
Yeah, he absolutely
and he stuck for a long time with them.
Yeah, and he's the amount of folks that I've met in my career that were like groomed by him. It's
absolutely, it's crazy.
So anyway, I was on my way to Toronto with Unilever because I wanted to get that cross-functional training so I could become a sales team lead, yada yada. They purchased Alberto Culver, so there was a large influx of people. Timing was getting delayed, and I just in my mind I was ready to go. Yeah. And at that point, Campbell's called. And it was Mark Rutledge, who was a Unilever director. Yeah, reached out with JD Robichaud and asked if I'd be interested in coming to run the Loblaws business. And of course, I'm like, who wouldn't want to do that? So we packed up our house and went, and I did that role for a couple of years, and then I ended up going into a trade role or a sales strategy role, and my original intent was to kind of do that for 5 or 6 months and then get out of it. But I landed in that role and actually just absolutely loved it. So
Nice.
it just gave me that enterprise perspective on how all the various functions work. And I did really, really good in that role.
That's my favorite job. I've done that for years and years and years, and I love that job.
I love that job. And I found my way back to sales director, but I found it was almost, I love sales. Like, it's my heart. It's what I love doing, but I found it like so unifunctional that I wasn't getting that enterprise view that when Vago/Whitewave phoned and asked at some point if I wanted to come back to Vancouver and build that capability with Vago, I was like, that sounds amazing. So I came back. It was much, much harder than I had ever anticipated to build that much trade function in an organization that never had it. So I did that for a few years, and then I went and ran Costco Global with Vega, and then realized I was kind of like, and I'm tying it back to the Robbie's thing now. This story's kind of long, but we're going back in time. There was always that spirit of the smaller entrepreneur company that I wanted to get back. And when I was within the Danone umbrella, well, it's a great company. It's very rigid, right? It's the classic. Here's how we want. It's a big company, right? Different types of expectations, different types of things you can and can't do. But I just found myself
too.
kind of.
Danone was French, and they have ways, like they're
very rigorous.
There are some things you just can't.
But Phil, you worked for Danone too, didn't you?
Yeah, we cross a ton here, like, because I started at Unilever when Unilever was Lever Pons, and and so I was in there, and then I worked at Danone. I want to say like 05, 06, I was there. So kind of like all over the. Anyway, please continue. But yes.
And we were Danone US, and it was an interesting thing because everything we did had to, like, a lot of the stuff had to go to Paris for approval, which it's a machine, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I kept in my mind, I was like, I sure love those days when it was like that. I left Campbell's to come to the entrepreneur thing again, and now I'm back where I kind of left. I'm like, I'm even bigger than what I.
Yeah.
So. The funniest thing, a couple of folks went to Daiya, and I got this random, solicitation from some folks to go for coffees. And I'm like, okay. And one thing leads to another, right? It's like, this would be a fantastic transition for me to come over and join Daiya at this moment in my career, to partially help run the international division, the Costco division, and then start to bring some of the rigor that a larger company has, but not so it's over processed and mitigating the ability for folks to innovate and be creative and courageous. So that was sort of the platform that was provided to me. And I'm like, I've got the game plan to go and do that. And I kind of walked them through everything.
Yeah.
3 weeks later, pen to paper and signature signed, and started March 2nd in the office and sent home 2 weeks later to work from home.
Yeah. Just enough time to collect some, paper clips and, some stationery.
Got some letterhead.
It's
all good, man.
It's crazy. I never thought it would be that type of an onboarding, but we've learned a lot this year, both, whether it's corporately, culturally, family-wise, etc. There's just been so much learning through this COVID environment. I think even when we end up back in, if we can call it normality, at some point next year or later, there's some stuff that I think we would want to keep.
I'm
hoping. We've talked about, Phil and I talked about that. We're hoping.
Yeah.
Hopefully some stuff will stick.
I think for our family, there are a lot of things that we're going to keep, like while all the terrible things are happening, there's some really wonderful family things that we've been able to do. And we're just, we've already decided we're not going to let go of those. Right. So we'll just figure out how to,
Yeah, it's interesting. So we were having our leadership team goodbyes for the holidays, if you will. And the one thing, you do the round table on, if you spend some time on reflecting at the year, what would be a couple of things that popped? And everything was coming down to the connection with family versus so much back and forth commuting time and the distraction of that headquarter life. Like I feel like everybody got that nuance of there was something really cool about being able to reconnect with our families, still get our business done, still coach our teams, still learn from each other.
Right.
Yet what portion of that do we want to keep as we progress into next year, or when we can go back into the to the offices and
hopefully
whatnot.
a lot of it.
Yeah.
I think what we learned, you don't have to be there 5 days a week, the 10, 12 hours a day. You actually can do a lot of it from home. Onboarding is a tough one. I think Phil and I've had chats. Onboarding new people is a little difficult in this environment.
That's tough.
But once you get going, you know what? It's not that bad. Time off the road, time and not in cars, like you said. I mean, shit.
Well,
not that bad a gig.
So my day right now starts at about 7, and then it ends at around 5 or 6, and I don't take much breaks. And folks could debate if that's too many hours or not, but for me, it's we're geographically spread out, so different time zones and whatnot. But like, I never would have had that 7 to 9 time frame to really connect with folks on the East Coast,
right?
When they're already running their day, right? So it's been like I get up in my morning, I'll spend with some of the leadership, the team leads out on the East, some of the account managers on the East, and we get that done, and then we parcel off to the more headquarter type work on these time zones. So it's definitely got some benefits, and I'm home for dinner, right? It's like you're not driving to get home at 7 o'clock.
Not a bad gig, like seriously. I mean, when you grand scheme of it, it's not that bad. It really isn't.
I like the I also like it's funny, like this week's been quiet because the kids are all off school, but I like the kind of like I'll pop down for coffee, right? And then my daughter, who might be on, she's virtual school, but she's grade 8, and she'll kind of go, I'm doing math. I don't understand what's happening. Right. And like, in the 15 minutes, I can make a coffee, but I can help her with her math.
Right.
And that's like, it's such a small thing, but it's so huge, right? Like for her to wait till the end of the day, and then for me to roll in at like 7:30, and then, like just, trying to see straight still, and then trying to do math, it's hard, right? But during the day, like there's this really neat moment because I can solve something for her fast, and then it's great. Like, so I really love that. I love those moments, right? Like,
it's really good.
Yeah,
I've always had that through my career. Was I've been pretty disciplined on 2 things. One is vacation, so making sure that when I'm on vacation, I'm present, unless it's mission critical, at which point I can get a text. But I try and not look at my email because that's very distracting.
Yeah.
And then the other piece was just a commitment to be home for dinner. So we eat dinner between 6 and 6:30, but I can't recall more than a handful of times where I've dropped that commitment.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Good for you.
Got to be home for dinner.
Good for you.
Yeah, if I have to jump on after, like later in the evening or whatnot, that's
so
fine. But just that, I mean, come on, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours before little kids are in bed that you get to have with them, right? So it's like dinner's important.
Hey, if you can do it, that's a good way to do it. I mean, why not? And hopefully that's one thing people have learned during this time is to try to spend a little more time if they can.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's funny.
Go ahead, Phil.
Sorry, no, I was just gonna say it's funny that listening to you talk, right? Because I really do. We
you guys have the same career. You're just older.
We have really similar careers. Yeah, like I
you guys are very similar. You've worked with a lot of the same companies.
And like Lever Ponds and Cheeseboro Ponds, into Unilever. So I spent a good chunk of time at 160 Bloor. I covered all the West accounts. I started in customer service. So Alan Bates was one of those people who he never yelled, but he would definitely get on the phone and tell you how disappointed he was. Yeah.
And it's a tone. I can hear a tone. It's a tone.
Like, and then I went the other route. So I went Revlon, Kimberly Clark. Kimberly Clark had a fellow named Daryl Weeb who could literally be Alan's twin, I think. I didn't know Daryl nearly as well, but the first time I met Daryl, I kind of went like,
well,
they all know each other, right?
They were, I think they were pretty pretty close.
Pretty
in the
tight, right?
industry.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only met Daryl once or twice before
Yeah.
then he retired, but
Yeah.
I know Outlet actually introduced me to him, and it's a tight group.
Yeah.
You know what? Though all the guys who were in those positions who were on the West Coast and were never, ever, 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 ever going to leave to go east, right? They just had the gig of all gigs, and everybody below them is thinking, "Oh, I want their job," and nobody understood. You ain't going to get that job.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Once those guys go, that job is gone.
Yeah,
that job is
leaving.
their job.
Yeah,
it is them.
Yeah.
There is no job.
Yeah.
There's Alan. There's Daryl. I'm trying to think of the handful of other guys in town that had those spots.
Well, Kimberly Clark did keep the spot, and if the fellow's name is on here,
I know
Richard Triggs is the other guy out there now. So Trigger's out there.
Yeah.
So Trigger and I met here in Toronto, and then went from Kimberly Clark. I went to Danone. I worked in Danone's business. I helped them get into Walmart, and then I was working on the global Walmart business. So I spent some time in Bentonville.
Great.
However you think that. So really, really similar sort of path. So.
And then
it's a great. I'll never regret my time in any of those companies. Right. There's always something to learn. I'm just at that point now where it was about making choices. Right. I kind of knew what I wanted to get to. I knew the leadership I like to work with. I knew the leader that I would like to aspire to be, and to do that, you got to be around those folks.
That's what you get from those companies.
Yeah.
You understand structure. You learn how, as much as you hate finance and you hated human resources, once you leave and go to a small company, thinking, fuck, I wish I had good finance. I wish we need human resources. Like you start going through the things you're thinking, oh man, geez, those things are huge. Or just general resources. You could ask somebody.
Yeah.
Because there's 1,000 people and someone knows something. In small companies, you just run, man. If you don't know it, nobody else probably does either. So just make it up.
Yeah. I found actually in my sweet spot, I really think it's between that sort of 100 to 300 or 400 million dollar company. I can do the bigger, but I really like being in that sweet spot where you're not over processed, but there's a need for process. You're not in the with the customer relationships in that debating over, negotiate over pennies. Like they're still excited about your brand. They're excited about your category. You're innovating.
They actually want to talk to you.
They want to talk to you. So you're in that really good sweet spot where you mean something to the category and the customer, and you've got the ability to still drive change for the consumer, right? So I love that sweet spot. That's where I'm at home, is in that type of company size.
I'm looking at is it Daiya?
Daiya, yep.
Daiya. So I'm looking at Daiya's, and this is fascinating, right? Because I don't know all of these. I only know the cheese, because I think that's what Daiya started with.
It is.
But I'm looking at all this stuff going, holy crap. I
have a lot of product.
All I knew was the shredded cheese, right? So I didn't know, there is so much stuff on here. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, the vision of the company that's been recently put forth upon development of the years that have gone by is largely around its plant-based breakthroughs. So there's an innovation component of that. But then there's also this side of it where it's, how do you become a product that's on the daily menu for the majority of the population? And that could be somebody cooking at home, or it could be somebody going out for dinner.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the premise of it. And if you think back, geez, I even within our own house, I can think 7 years ago, we have a group of really, like the vegetarian group of friends in our group. They, you come over for dinner, it was almost like you always had to make the other dinner, right? Whereas today, in this case, cheese analogs and whatnot, the flavor profiles are so good now. It's not like that. You're just making dinners, right? So my wife will pull together vegetarian dinners and everybody's just enjoying it. Because the technology has come forward so far versus, for sort of 5 or 6 years ago.
For sure.
Yeah, I see why this is a fit. You talk about this. You're probably one of the very few in this category that
is doing this, so retailers will want to be talking to you, right? Like you bring leadership to this category, really.
You've seen it. You've done higher level, bigger accounts. Like you can see from a whole different perspective, right?
Yeah, and we certainly, we looked across predominantly what would be a great cheese type of product that you get in there. You'd see burritos, you'd see the pizzas, obviously you'd see the various shreds and whatnot, but then you have the novelties, which are more the frozen dessert bars and the pints. And quite frankly, if you ever have a chance to try those, they're absolutely outstanding. So there's a little bit of let's push the boundary on what product development could be for Daiya and the offerings that our consumers would be looking to pick up. And there's this whole world now of it's just so fascinating to me. Like you have these products that are meeting gluten-free needs, dietary needs, allergy needs, like all that kind of stuff. So you've got a group of folks that are buying it because maybe their kids couldn't eat ice cream or they can't eat cheese, so you're buying it. But now you fast forward and folks are buying it because it actually tastes really good. They love the flavor profiles. And they like that it's good for the environment, right? That it's got a different lens versus, say, dairy products and whatnot. So it's a really unique space to be in, I think, right now in the plant-based development. I think we're, folks kind of look at the curve of categories. I still think we're on the upside of development in these categories.
This is definitely a lifestyle thing. This is going to change. This has got lifestyle. This has got environmental. It's got climate. It's got a whole ton of things. So why don't you do me a favor, though? Give people who don't know what Daiya Foods are. I know what Daiya is because Daiya is obviously in the city.
Yeah.
So, I know Daiya is just down the street, or they used to be just down the street because remember, I'm an East fan. So they're in the hood just down the street.
They're on Rupert, and we're just moving into a new facility in just off Production Way.
Okay. So they're just down by the Superstore, which is literally 7-8 blocks from the house.
Right. Yeah, that's current. Up for about another week.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
So once you get an idea what Daiya Foods is first, like what it is, what they're more or less about.
Damn, I'm getting hungry looking at your website. Yeah. Yeah,
you're looking at the website. You know me. Then I get distracted. So I'm trying to be the one now that's a little bit more adult. And, try to stay foked. Yeah. You two, I don't know the hell you're going. Let's go.
So the mission really for the company, and I'll just read it right off the wall because I've got this stuff pinned up. I'm somewhat of a geek with that kind of stuff, but the mission is really around pioneering plant-based breakthroughs that delight people and planet. So there's a whole story in that in terms of products and the impact on the environment and the impact to the consumers. So that's the mission, and then the vision is along what we had just discussed around finding our way onto daily menus. So that's the lens that we will look at from our folks that are coming in to develop innovation, marketing plans, sales execution plans, technology enhancements, all of that stuff. That's what they're really gunning towards. And when you think of ending up on a menu or someone's table, what product and categories are the most optimal for us to go into? And that's where you're going to see pizza and cheese, great correlation there, right? The number one plant-based cheese product in North America. Why wouldn't you make pizza and put that on, right? Yeah. So you've got that synergy. Burritos, we have same thing. The cheeses are put into the burritos. On the ice cream and pint side, that's something where we were looking more for an indulgent experience, and they are extremely good. And that kind of deviated a little bit from that core cheese focus of past, but it obviously brought forth plant-based breakthroughs. Right. So that's kind of the high level history of the company and what the channels are that we operate in. We're one of the few plant-based companies that really, from a customer perspective, we have a presence in almost every aisle. You kind of go like 2 or 3 aisles over, you're gonna find Daiya product. There's the mac and cheese portfolio that I hadn't articulated yet, but that is also going gangbusters actually. Mm-hmm. And this year with COVID, like the growth on everything plant-based has just been through the roof. So we play in a whole pile of different categories with the retailers, which is great for for building out plant-based in their stores.
So the base of your lot of products, is it nut based? Is it soy based? Is it pea based? Like what is the, or they just dabble into anything that makes sense?
Yeah, it all depends on the product. So without giving any secrets away, it's
don't trade secrets. High level.
It's all plant-based.
Okay, a little lower level than that high level.
So it depends. Like you'll have coconuts, there's chickpeas, there's all kinds of various ingredients going in. What's actually super exciting is when you look at some of the innovation centers ingredients of the future right now. So how do you have like proteins in all these various products where maybe you don't have as much protein today, right? Like there's so much interesting work being done on the future of plant-based cheese, pizzas, and all the other products that we sell, including ones that we don't create today.
Right.
It's cool.
And the majority of the business with Daiya, though, is like cheese is where they started, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the webpage in front of me.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. So we would say focus is cheese and pizza. Like that would be if we had to win in something, those would be the two categories, right? Like
so pizza you're talking. So the pizza is vegan. Like is it plant based?
It is. It's
so there's no egg. There's in the dough. There's no.
Correct. Gluten-free, vegan certified, all of that stuff. So those two categories I would say are, and don't quote me on the numbers, but they're like 60 to 70-ish% of the business, and then you'll have your other peripheral items in there. But I would say certainly focus is rooted in the cheese and the pizza products.
It's a neat thing too. I mean, it's a small thing because I think this in itself, it's such a strong assortment to go after. But like the cheesy mac, for instance, I think it's really neat because we're in pandemic times. I'm in Ontario, so we're going right back into lockdown. Like milk is a problem, right? Like through the first pandemic, just getting dairy was hard, right? And now you've got the ability to be able to function without it. A lot of these things work without it. Like it's kind of amazing, right? Like I'm trying to have a logical discussion, but the pints, the dessert bars, and the cheesecake is killing me, right? Like I'm stuck.
I know.
Oh, and the cheesecake, yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the website. It's killing me. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, and there's some wonderful stories we have where we have a medical advocacy program.
Okay.
And we will work with children's hospitals around the US and Canada. And certainly when it comes to some of those dessert type products, when we walk into hospitals with donations of ice cream, like the kids absolutely love it, right? Because some of them have dietary issues and they just can't consume dairy. So we'll go in with those products and they absolutely, it's like some of the best images you can see, right? Is when you've got the kids in like sick kids hospital and whatnot getting their free packages. So
why not, right? I mean, indulgence is nice. Like kids love treats, right? And if you can get treats to finally start tasting like what you've got in your head is what it should taste like, whatever that means.
Yeah.
I mean, I know in my head what I think things should taste like because I am the meatitarian and dairyitarian and all the bad things in today's world, especially in the West Coast. Well, but I can definitely go the other way. I have no issue, especially today, the way things are and the way they taste. I don't really care. As long as it tastes good, no matter to me.
That is the key. So that is the one proxy that Daiya always has front and center on food development is that like taste is paramount.
Everything you feel like you're settling. Right, you just can't feel like you're settling.
You don't. Settling. Why bother?
Yeah.
And actually, 6 years ago, you likely would have been like
for sure.
First generation cheeses, first generation ice creams, whether they were Daiya or somebody else, they just didn't taste that great. But the technology has come so far.
Yeah.
Like we'll eat pizzas, Daiya pizzas every week, and I prefer them over another dairy type, and I'll eat dairy pizza as well.
Yeah.
Right.
And what you're finding is the average, like it's a lot of flexitarians now, right? So folks that are not pure vegetarian, folks that are not maybe eating steak every day, but like they're just in the middle and they want to eat with a different type of food experience.
Yeah.
And so they're
We're-
purchasing these products.
We're veggie 3 times a week now because my youngest can't do it. Like, so she said to me, I see all the animal stuff. I don't, I think it's cruel. I don't want to do it. Is there a way? And I said to her, I don't think we can do this every day because we've got to learn a lot about diets before we can make the switch. But we started with 2 days a week. We're now every Monday, Wednesday, Friday is veggie day.
That's great.
And the whole family came along. Like, at first they were all like, no, you go do that. You make meat. And I made, kind of like both meals. And then eventually we just like, so the cheese slices, the shreds, and the blocks are in my house.
Oh, that's great.
Because, like on those days it's, actually it started on those days and now they're just like all the time, right? Because it's fantastic. So,
and that story we hear, like your experience, we hear so often, right? And interesting enough, when the pandemic hit, so back in March, this is I guess about 5 weeks before retail really started to balloon with consumption sales. I remember reading all kinds of industry reports, and there was an intense fear that plant-based categories were going to suffer, and folks were going to go back to that more indulgent, older way of eating, and they were going to stick with, steaks and chicken and everything else. Completely the opposite has happened. Like I shouldn't say every, but I can't think of a plant-based category in the last 6 months that is not just skyrocketing. And it's not just the same users. There's a lot of new users coming in.
We're home.
Category.
Yeah. A lot of us are cooking, right? And you're just thinking, I'll try this, I try that. All of a sudden you're not going out as much.
But
exactly.
Things have changed, right?
I also have time to learn, right? Like, I think that's a big thing is, like we were talking about before, right? If I'm running back and forth from work, I want to learn, but I don't have enough time to kind of take in the pieces I need to be confident. So I am going to go with things I know, right? So, but I've been home. I can read, I can learn, we can try new stuff, right? And like there's kind of like lots of ways around it. So it's I have a question on like in competitiveness with like, for example, with cheese and things like that. Do you have, or because you have yogurt as well, right? And so kind of our heritage of like, the minute you stick that on a shelf, there's a clock to how long you can leave it on shelf. Is like dairy-free yogurt, is it more competitive? Like, do you have a longer shelf life or shorter?
It's about the same.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wasn't super close to the Danone expiry dates, but it's about the same.
Yeah, like 60, 90, somewhere in there.
Yeah. We actually, on the cheese side of it, you're pushing about 6 to 9 months, right, of on shelf. So
I'm not advertising for you, but my cheese doesn't last that long at all. Like, I actually think though, like 3 months in, I think that they were out eating, there's this really nice sharp cheddar that we buy at our local Costco. It's like a local cheese that Costco brings in. 3 months in, your cheese was actually being eaten faster than the cheese from that Costco.
That's because it tastes so much better.
Yeah. And they didn't know, right? They were just, they were just choosing, and they were choosing the Daiya cheese. So
yeah, you'll find that the repeat rates, if there is a correlation there, but the repeat rate on ours is typically higher than most of the competitive set. And it's largely from flavor profile. But I mean, it's getting fierce out there with the competition. It's typical, right? You get to companies that are getting in the media for being acquired for significant amounts of money and expanding their facilities for production, and sure enough, competition comes in to try and get a piece of that, right? So there is a fair amount of product out there now.
I think it's funny. We Kenny and I had this conversation with somebody else, maybe I don't know, like 40, 50 episodes ago, but we were talking about things like gluten-free. And how the early days, everything was cardboard-ish. frozen-ish, right? Like you could eat it for like 2 days before it started to go bad and it tasted awful. And I think this is another one of those categories where I remember the early days and we all kind of, like plant-based cheese. Like, is that a real thing, right? Like, it must taste like cardboard, right? But it's amazing because you've like Daiya's laid down this path to mainstream, and figured out how to do it in categories, so now people, they're competing on what you've trailblazed basically.
Well, and the expectation is a lot higher now, not just for Daiya, but in the plant-based arena, that it's gonna taste good, right? Like there's not it's not really okay to taste like cardboard anymore, right? Like that's almost the first gen type of stuff.
Yeah.
Now the technology has advanced so much, like the expectation from the consumer is that they're going to enjoy having that, whether it's a meal occasion or a beverage or whatever it is. The expectation's high that it's going to taste good, right? And quite frankly, with the marketing that's applied to a lot of these companies, where it's almost, you got your deli type of this or your deli type of that, right? It's like this, you're setting the expectation for a great flavor experience and texture experience with the products that are ending up on shelf. And I'd say in my time in the more natural product arena, I would say it's even in the 6-7 years, it's come a long way. Like when you're at Expo West, most of the product that you're trying there is pretty good. Like I can't remember anything that just really was like, I'm not aligned with that flavor profile. But
if you
like,
go back 7 to 10 years ago, there was a lot of very interesting product.
Yeah, exactly.
You go back the last 3-4 years, you know what? It's good. I mean, it's always the same thing, right? I mean, if you play on both sides of the fence, I hate to tell you, chicken tastes like chicken.
Yeah.
Yes, those are very good, but they're not chicken. Hamburger's a hamburger. Yes, it's very good, but it's not quite the same. But I think what people got to do on both sides, that's not what the comparison should be about anyway. If you want to have a hamburger, have a hamburger.
Exactly.
That's, like if a vegan coming up to me and saying this tastes just like chicken, well, shit, you probably don't know because you never had chicken. So no, it doesn't taste like chicken. Does it taste good? Do I like it? 100%. But get away from the comparisons of what you're trying to be. You should just try to be really good food.
Well,
like just do that because that's all I want. I don't really care if it tastes like. Don't tell me it tastes like Parmigiano. It's not going to. I hate to tell you, it's not going to.
If it's good, that's
what I want.
Yeah,
all I care.
It's funny. I've got my best friend, vegetarian, and for him, like he would prefer an older style veggie burger than say a Beyond Meat or whatnot, because
I know a lot of people do too.
He doesn't want any meat proxy. He wants the vegetarian,
the old
type
mushroom kind of base, or the barley, the spelt, like where that was that kind of chewy, nothing like beef, but it wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be
it wasn't.
A patty that wasn't beef related. It was an alternative to that. Whatever that happened to be.
There's a lot of folks that still want that, right? And that's what certainly my friend wants, and a lot of consumers still want that. They don't want the bleeding vegetarian patty. They want, just give me my vegetarian patty that tastes great still and has good texture, but it's a different type of flavor profile.
That's what I was sort of going to ask you, like, because you've been in the industry now, not a ton of time, but long enough to start seeing. What are you seeing in trends like that? Like, is it to be like what you're trying to be, or is it gone to the stage where, you know what, I can be whatever I want to be? Or a little bit of both.
In terms of Daiya, or just in general?
Just in general, even. I mean, Daiya is probably going to have their own path, I'm sure. Yeah, Daiya's been around long enough to know that you can't call yourself a cheese and not be anything similar to a cheese.
Exactly.
There's no sense to that.
My high level perspective would be, it feels like there certainly has been more of a shift from the early phase where you were largely trying to appease to vegetarian or vegan type of consumer, to that more flexitarian type of diet, which just by doing that really changes the flavor profile and what you're trying 100%. To do. So 100%. I would, from what I see when I'm out in the marketplace or at trade shows or whatnot, I tend to see a higher propensity for companies trying to proxy whatever dairy or meat analog that it's out there. Like they're really trying to replicate that experience to get the flexitarian into their brand. So that has been the shift. I think there's a debate on if that's the right thing or not.
It's a numbers game.
From my experience, once you start to deviate away from that, your velocities start to come down, right? You have a much narrower consumer base.
Well, if 90% of the consumers are not participating in that section, you can go for the 10 all day, and now you're trying to convert them within the brands that are already there. Or it's like going from the natural channel to the mass. The natural channel is a fantastic channel, but only 15% of the population shops it. The other 85 are somewhere else. Well, the money, the big prize is trying to get those people. What you're also trying to do is not deviate from values or anything like that. So you are becoming just like the other people. You know what I mean? That's where we had Arjun on a little while ago talking about what his dad and his mom did with Nature's Path and etc. And how the kids are even kind of continuing on the path of we're going to do what's just good for we're going to do good food.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're going to like it, you're going to like it. And if you don't, well, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's not to deviate from sort of what your core purpose was, I guess, at that point, which was in this case, to get people into more plant-based.
Yeah, and so that is one of the principles I've had, and I didn't have it when I first got into the natural space, but certainly I'd say about year 3, it was this idea of just getting more plant-based to the masses, right? And what does that really mean? Well, it's one, you can't have a narrow consumer profile because that doesn't bring it to the masses. You can't have it just in natural channel because that's only, so if the principle is to get more plant-based out to the marketplace, which is one of the principles I work within, of course you're going to start to talk to your Walmarts, your Targets, your Costco's of the world, and those consumers are actually demanding it now. So it's gone way beyond sort of natural channel.
Oh, totally.
And quite frankly, even when you go to like an Expo West,
it's mainstream. It's mainstream convenience.
It's mainstream now, and it's great. It's like
absolutely
every retailer under the sun is there, right?
So is every manufacturer.
Every manufacturer is there.
Most of the guys of any size are all owned by multinationals, and that's fine, right? Because you know what? That pumps in resources. That pumps in human resource, financial resource, scientific resource, where you can start to do some things, because ultimately if the goal is to get away from whether it's fossil fuels, whether it's animal byproducts or whatever it is, you've got to get to larger groups.
Well, and you make a good point there on the financing component of some of those larger organizations, and specifically around innovation, right? Like most consumers don't really know how much that costs and how often it fails, right? And if you don't have some deep pockets to help along that journey, some of these great products that we have today would just never exist.
Exactly.
Right? So there's always this like, oh, you sold out, or there's this sellout company. It's like, well,
no,
sure, in that world you might think that, but like if they could bring a whole bunch of new products to market because they've got the dollars now to hire the best R&D people and food scientists to come in and really
they have to marry each other, because I tell people the same. If you're waiting for Coca-Cola or Unilever to innovate, you're going to wait a long time. They have all the cash in the world and they have all the resources in the the They are too freaking slow and too freaking big.
But they would tell you the same thing, right?
Exactly. Then they go buy little guys who are the opposite, have no resources and no money. But have a lot of cool innovation. So the big companies got to learn to do it, and a lot of the big ones are getting it. Buy them. Control sort of the structure a little bit, but let them be. Let them do what they're good at. They just needed a little help.
That's exactly it. I think
stay the hell out of it.
That a lot of companies haven't done a great job of that. Like the parent companies.
They've gotten better now.
They've gotten better now. I think the biggest problem with most of it is they're operators, right? So they come in, they make the purchase, and they can't understand, and most of the people in those organizations can't understand how these small businesses get anything done, or how they're not, having
chaos
legal challenges and chaos, and so they just they can't figure it out, right? And then they become operators, and at that point, that's where you
kill
start to see things fall apart because
You
they
kill
want to
it.
go to your customer meetings with the teams. They want to investigate your innovation pipelines and question everything. And then to your point, Ken, it just
kill it.
sucks the energy
Exactly.
out of it all, right? So
because Phil and I got to be careful, Chris, because we're married to each are married to an accountant. It's like when accountants buy companies, start coming in to run, you're thinking, oh fuck, there that goes. Right? Our sheets are going to look wonderful. There's going to be a fucking ounce of innovation left in this place because it's just the mentality is different, right? But you get a lot of good ones that come in and say, listen, you got to control the spend, boys and girls. Like, calm down. Yeah. But just go. Here's a bucket. Go. Yeah. I'll stay out of your way. I'll just reel you in periodically, right? And I think that's sort of the trick with it. So Daiya right now, Chris, Daiya is how big? How many people at Daiya?
Oh gosh, I think it's around 130, 140.
So it's still small, privately held.
Small.
It's not. We got purchased by a company called Otsuka out of Japan.
Okay.
I'm gonna say 2 years ago, and they are a holding company, which is actually a great thing.
Yeah, not necessarily a bad thing.
They've got the resources to assist with product development and investment for growth and all of that great stuff.
Nice.
They're not operators.
Yeah,
so they're not in our customers. They don't have that relationship and are trying to do things differently. They're not that. So we've got our new facility that's opening in Burnaby is 400,000 square feet.
It's a nice size.
Massive.
Jeez.
Wow.
And a lot of that is because of Otsuka. And they have got, we've got an incredible innovation center that's being put together. So that is going to be a huge enabler of the future.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got more capacity. So supply chain constraints and all of that will start to get reduced because we can manage stuff. We can actually hold stuff.
Yeah, imagine that.
Ebb and flow our production capabilities. Like it's beautiful, but that takes deep pockets to pull that together, right? That wouldn't have happened without the acquisition.
Yeah.
So that's one of those examples where I think with the right partners, and they're not, they're not in the daily updates around volume and all that good stuff. They're in for the long haul. They want to see really good plans. Like they're very, very detailed on the plans. But
your day to day, off you go.
But they'll let you execute. Just
they want you to execute.
They want
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So far, I'm in there 9-10 months now, so I haven't had a lot of interaction with them. I'm hoping once we're through COVID, there'll be a little bit more.
Yeah.
From everything I've seen, it's a dramatically different environment than I saw at Vega, and certainly what I would have saw with like Campbell's with a Plum organization. Like, because you got operators working with smaller companies, and it works sometimes, and more often than not, it ends up not working.
Yeah, it's just typically it just doesn't.
Well, Cash and Kellogg's is a classic example that that happened probably a decade or so ago.
Yeah.
But it's like everybody said they learned from it in the industry, but not really.
Not really.
That was
People
more
say
like
that from a
we
distance,
wouldn't have done it that way, but like nobody actually learned.
They should have left them alone.
Yeah.
Which was funny because you remember at that time, I remember when they got bought, it was the first thing you said, because we all came from, the three of us came from the mass side. You look think, that's one way to fuck up a company. That'll do it. Yeah. You're going to get this big company that just moves boxes, running a company that actually runs on, if we sell a few things, that's great. But really, as long as we stick to our ideas, that's the more important part.
Yeah.
Right. And these companies don't, think, well, no, it's about moving boxes. You're thinking, well, no, not really.
Yeah.
Have to be good. And you have to be this. You're thinking, operators thinking, no, not really. Just move a lot of boxes. Move those boxes.
Yeah.
I remember how many heads were swiveling when that happened.
Like, oh my God. I was at Expo at those times and thinking they just were furious.
You guys are getting together. Okay, this will be interesting, right?
And then Coke started and Pepsi started. Unilever bought stuff. And Nestle, L'Oreal Group came. They were thinking. And then once they started figuring out, just let them be.
Yeah.
Like if this Japanese companies came in with cash, which is what you're looking for, that's because it's hard to 400,000 square feet in the Lower Mainland is not a cheap endeavor.
No,
it's the Hudson's Bay. At the production waste SkyTrain station.
Yeah.
And there was that old, I think it was the
Yeah.
Bay warehouse. It's that
Yeah.
building, basically the entire thing. So
Wow.
it's all
That's a
been,
huge
it's all
space.
being, and
That's
it's being
cool.
retrofitted, right? It's not like it's a production facility.
Yeah.
All the refrigeration, manufacturing.
Oh, it's crazy how much
innovation.
money you have to put into that. Like, it's mental.
It is insane the
Oh,
amount of
it's nuts.
dollars and time to do that. So yeah, and they've
Crazy.
they've certainly got different business units that technology wise we might be able to find some synergy and leverage. So we're just exploring that
Mhm.
that now, right?
Mhm.
There's some folks in Japan, there's folks in Paris, like there's some different areas that we can look at for product development and synergy for technology of the future.
Nice.
Very cool.
Wow. It's awesome.
Very
Chris,
cool.
we're really thankful you joined us.
Yeah, no, this was great. I was actually
Yeah.
when Kenny,
I told you it was easy, man. There's nothing.
Yeah.
I was like, do I need to prep for anything? What do you?
You should know better. The few times we dealt with each other, you know that I wasn't massively prepped, and we still got stuff done. Right?
Yeah, no, we got a lot of stuff done.
It's more fun.
Those were some of my funnest years actually, because
Those are a lot of fun.
they were those, I don't know, it just didn't seem quite as serious back then, and maybe it was the stage I was at in my career, or maybe it was the time, but it seemed like it was just fun. It was a different time.
Yeah, I think it's just a different time. I really do, because you can still find that fun.
Yeah.
It's it's company dependent and timing.
It is.
People have just gone really up to, I think COVID, that's why maybe COVID's actually had, again, to what Phil said before, it's hard to find some positives, but there's a lot of positives in the situation, in that it has maybe ground people a little differently to think, what's really important and what really is not as important as we might have thought it was.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'll see where it goes.
Chris, if people want to find you, what's the best place to find you?
They could actually just go on LinkedIn. That's probably the fastest way to get me, and I check that a fair amount. So any notifications coming through, I'll definitely pick that up.
Okay. So we'll stick Chris's LinkedIn in the show notes when you guys hear this, and then we'll put Daiya in there. I'm gonna go out and get some cheesecake tomorrow.
Do it.
Attaboy.
There is pumpkin spice is on the shelf for the seasonal flavor. So
there you go.
And it's spectacular.
Maybe we'll have you back on in a year or so, once you get another year under the belt. And I'd like to see where things are going.
Yeah.
It's interesting, because we've had a few plant-based companies or people on that are in the industry, and Phil and I have saying the same thing. I don't think honestly, it's definitively a lifestyle. It's not a fad. Yes, pockets may change. I understand that.
Yeah.
But I think we're all figuring out that we need to be careful on cattle and all those things. The negative impact. There's a lot of positives for sure, but there are massive negative impacts too. So we got to kind of find.
And now we have options. We have real options,
and that's what we all needed more than anything.
I think that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd definitely love to come back on and chat in a year.
Awesome, man.
So let's see. Hopefully, we can do it in person. Well,
that would be amazing.
You never know, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
a year from now, theoretically, that should be very possible.
Should be doable.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the year, if you guys see new trends or you see stuff that you want to talk about, definitely ping us back. We actually have a bunch of folks that we've said, as you find cool new things, just shoot us a note. You can come back on, and we'd love it. We'd really love it.
Especially in these industries, because these industries are very, very cool. They're very relevant. They're very timely. And I think it's important that people that see it. Plus, you got to remember, a lot of smaller companies do listen to the show, and it's good for them to see that you can do stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's opportunities out there, and that's where we're trying to present.
Oh, there's so much opportunity out there. Much.
It's awesome.
Very cool. Thanks, buddy boy.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Talk to you. Merry Christmas.
All right. Thanks.
Cheers, you too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Phil, stick around for a sec.
Yeah, you got it, man. That was cool.
Interesting though, right? It's I just fascinated how the plant-based industry is just going.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember when they first came out, and Daiya had struggles, definitely for mainstream people, because you market something as cheese, and you're thinking, nah, that ain't cheese.
We bought it. We didn't like it. I think when it first came out,
You had to be really
didn't,
into that industry. Like you wanted to be. Yeah. Or you just didn't know what a good cheese would have tasted like.
Yeah.
But to 12, 13 years later, I mean, the strides have been.
I think to me, putting it beside, honestly, like the local Costco has this just super nice artisan cheddar that we love it, right? Like it's a staple. And then I bought the Daiya, put it right beside it, and the kids voted, right? Like they just kept eating the Daiya, right? Like so the other cheddar block stayed nice and big, and the Daiya just like, so it is what it is, right?
All
like
cool,
that's
buddy.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah. Hey, I have a question for next week.
Yeah.
What do you feel like doing? So we could I had that idea. We could if we want to do it, what I could do tomorrow is just send an email to pretty much everyone who's ever been on the show and say like it'd be like probably next Wednesday or something like
Thursday's
that.
New Year's Eve, right?
Right. So maybe next Wednesday during the day, we just take 2 hours. We open up a Zoom line, and you can come on and say hello, and like that would be the episode, right? As people pop on, they say hello, they go away.
See what happens with it. Like we can see if there's any interest. If not, then
there's no interest. Then we just don't put out an episode next week.
Well, we can either skip one, or just you and I can have a chit chat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm totally good with it. Like I'd be curious to see what people are doing.
Yeah, I'd love it if people just popped on and like you can come on, say hello, and then go away, and
leave.
We'd love it, and it would be great. So okay,
cool.
Okay, so I'll set that up. Awesome, buddy. Go get some dinner.
Have a Merry Christmas.
You too.
Because I won't talk to you until next week. So have a great week.
Yeah.
Enjoy it with the family and the kids, and we will.
You as well. Are you?
It'll be very different.
Wait, so your boy is home. Will your daughter
Daniel's
come home?
Carly got home.
Okay.
Last week.
Okay. She's got a quarantine, right?
She's got a quarantine until I think the 26th or 27th.
Okay.
She's got COVID, right?
She does.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, a lot of them did. Apparently, it was on the news today that there's a lot of the camps and in those spots. Well, what happens? You're tight people. All it takes is one person. And it just goes, right? Because she sounds like she's pretty good. I mean, I think she's smell, if I'm not mistaken. That's the only thing that's a little different.
Like
but she's fine.
Smell.
Or doesn't have the same acuity, for lack of a better word. I mean, just not the same. But I mean, buddy, it is what it is, right?
She's young.
It's almost inevitable. She's young and she's in good shape.
It's different than you and I getting it, for sure.
Well, different for you, for sure. I'd be okay, but you know.
The old guy. You're right. You're right.
Easy. Yeah, exactly. A young buck like me, be like 10 minutes. I'd be cured. Yeah, hang on to that one. You can edit that out of this episode too.
I love it.
All good, buddy.
All right. Thanks, young man. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Okay.
Ciao, buddy.
Bye.